Today's episode is brought to you by Drift Outfitters in downtown Toronto, Ontario. Drift Outfitters is your source for all things fly fishing. From waders and boots to thread and feathers, Drift has it all. They're now open for in-store shopping, but with a COVID times twist. Along with mandatory masks, a few other things have changed. Check in on their website for their latest updates and policy. Curbside pickup for your online and phone orders is still a great way to get all the gear you need, and they're shipping for free across Canada on orders over $100. Visit driftoutfitters.com to learn more. Hello, welcome to another episode of So Fly. It is the beginning of November, and we're back recording another episode. It's like 20 degrees outside right now in Ontario, which doesn't make any sense. My name is Mitch. We've got Aldo.
Hey.
And we've got Yelma.
Hi, and I'm wearing shorts.
Yeah, like what's with this weather? It's so strange.
I don't know, and it's election day for our
in the US
US
right.
friends. So when this airs, you'll know who wins, but right now we don't know what's going on.
Crazy times.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so strange today. I don't understand. We're really excited today to have a special guest on the show. We've been lucky enough recently to go fishing with. We've got Tyler Dunsmore on the show. Tyler has been fishing the rivers of Southern Ontario since he was 5 years old, and from the Miramichi River in New Brunswick for Atlantic salmon to the rivers and lakes of British Columbia for trout, including Vancouver Island steelhead. Tyler spent years living and guiding in various Canadian fly fishing hotspots, but he's also lived and guided in Argentina and Chile for famous Patagonian trout and Tierra del Fuego's sea run browns. When not scouting or exploring the rivers, he's an active member of the Golden Chapter of Trout Unlimited, and currently Tyler is serving as one of the co-vice presidents. During his downtime, Tyler can be found at the fly tying bench spinning flies for next fishing opportunity, or you can find him floating down the meandering, beautiful, amazing rivers of Southern Ontario, guiding anglers into some of the best water and getting them onto some fish. Like I said, we just spent a recent weekend fishing with Tyler and can absolutely vouch for his masterful chef's kiss drift boat handling skills. To Tyler, fly fishing is more than a gig or a hobby, it's a passion. His love, or should we say obsession for fly fishing, comes through in all the little touches that make his guided trips memorable and exceptional. And now located on the banks of the Middle Grand River, Tyler endeavors to incorporate all the best attributes of the places he's fished and guided, and been privileged enough to work at to create this really unique and really best fly fishing experience that you can have right here in Southern Ontario. Super excited, Tyler, to have you on. How's it going?
Oh, amazing. Thank you very much. That was a mouthful. Holy
I know. I like setting things up lately. It's for people listening at home, it's a new feature, little introductions, but I think it's nice to just, have you on the show. I don't want to, Tyler, what do you do? Let's get a little intro here.
Yeah, I love the intro.
Oh, that was fantastic. Holy,
Right
I'm blushing right now.
Well, we're super excited to have you on. Like I said in the intro, I mean, we could talk all day about, fly fishing down here for steelhead and the guided trips you're doing, but you've guided in some incredible places, Miramichi out west, and then, Argentina, Chile. Like, there's some crazy stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you say all that, it makes it sound like a lot, doesn't it? Wow.
It kind of is.
It's pretty decent. It's a pretty decent resume, I would say.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well,
whereabouts you calling in from today, Tyler? You're down in whereabouts are you again? Paris?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm at home here in Paris, Ontario. So right on the banks of the Middle Grand River, more or less. Yeah. Or at least a few minutes away, and my home waters and where I do most of my guiding. So
such a good spot.
That's where we are today.
So close, so close to that river. Oh my God! Like when we pulled up to Paris there a couple weeks ago when we fished, and I was like, "Oh man, Tyler, like you live so close to this." Like Aldo and I were like, "Did we move to Paris? Like, is that the move right now?" Like, I don't have to live in.
I don't have to live in Toronto. I don't have to live in Toronto anymore.
Yeah,
I can work from anywhere.
Move close to the river.
Tyler, I'm moving in.
Okay. All right, we got lots of room. Hey, they're building houses like crazy here. So I
know. Well, that's a whole other thing
that's a whole other topic we can get into.
Which we definitely will.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Politics.
I mean, politics. Well, hey, it's that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, I know we're going to get into it, but we had this awesome float a couple weeks ago, and I love the Grand River already. I think I love it even more now. I see, especially the Middle Grand for people listening to the show, or for people who are from here or not from here, like we spend so much time fishing the Upper Grand for browns, and then as it gets wider, I always really kind of saw it through the lens of a bass angler, and it's an awesome bass river. But man, doing that float with you changed the way I view that river completely.
Well, you start to see the whole river when you float, versus
that makes it seem like. Oh, sorry, Mitch. Yeah, that makes it seem like I didn't like it. I loved the river already, but now it's like there's even more to it. It's It's like when you eat pizza, but then you realize you can put truffle sauce on pizza. It's well, I already liked pizza.
Oh, it's funny. I like when you put pineapples.
Oh God, pineapples! What the
I love pineapples on pizza.
Oh my God. Okay, well, this is a whole other podcast. Stay tuned.
The pizza podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you talk about the Grand that way. I mean, it's. I think I obviously have the luxury of living on it and fishing it all the time, so you get to know the ins and outs. Let's just say, or the river within the river, which I think any river I've ever spent significant amount of time on, you start to figure it out, and you find those little nuances about the river. And the Grand has lots of nuances, as you know. You say you see it as a bass river, and it is primarily kind of a warm water river throughout the summer, but it has this amazing influx and springs and seeps of cold water and cold tributaries coming in that make it basically blue ribbon, steelhead, and resident trout fishing at least certain times of the year. So the river within the river.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember hearing about the Grand River when I lived in Ottawa, because it was, one of those big rivers in Southern Ontario that was for trout fishing, and always wanting to fish it. And I agree, although getting to float it, like you start to see the whole river as opposed to just, parts you walk into. You get a sense of the whole flow, and it does definitely opens it up in your head, and you go, oh yeah, like there's so many spots to fish,
Yeah, there is, and it's a unique one. I mean, for the guy who wants to come and fish it, who has that 1 hour or 2 hour drive, timing is everything, as they say. And someone comes, they start spending time on the river, and they don't hit the timing, and the river. I think people start to shy away from it, which I guess is a good thing for me in a sense. But you got to put your time in, figure it out a bit, and sort of get tuned in, and you can have success for sure. So
absolutely. Okay, so why don't we go back to how you got into fly fishing, where it all began, and just kind of go that way. I mean, you've been fly fishing down in Southern Ontario since you were 5. Like, how did that all begin, and what were some of the rivers you were fishing and learned to fish on?
Well, definitely fishing when I was 5, but not fly fishing quite at that age, of course. But so I grew up in London, and so I actually spent hours upon hours fishing on the Thames River for smallmouth bass.
Oh, nice.
And with my dad, who introduced me to the sport, of course. And he was not a fisherman. I mean, we actually learned together. We got out there and made all the mistakes. And I was obviously pretty young at the time, but that's kind of where the passion got ignited, I guess. And then I discovered, well, there was a few trout streams in the London area too, tributaries of the Thames, where I was able to actually fish for brook trout. So I mean, there was the interest that sparked the trout and steelhead thing. And the Thames does have a run of steelhead, actually, small runs, isolated runs. But
oh wow, really? Eh?
Yeah, it does. And from there, I think I got my first, to jump ahead to like being 14, 15. I think someone gifted me a fly reel. And then I was like, okay, I need a line, I need a rod. Off to Canadian Tire to get I think it was, what was it called back then? The Sill Star or something, It was $14.99 for the rod. And
yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I was out there whipping the line around in the backyard and ruining fly lines and trying to sort it out all on my own. But it was fun. I started to catch bass, when I was young like that, and it really kind of got me hooked. Yeah. And off it went from there. And it waxed and waned a bit. Like I'd fly fish a bit and then get away from it and go back to it until I think I was probably 18 or 19 or sometime in college, I would say. Went to Sir Sanford Fleming for aquaculture. While I was there, we fished a lot. And of course, my fishing buddies were all center pinning at the time. So I gravitated to that for a while. But after that, I consciously made a decision that I was going to switch to a fly, and I put that rod away. And I think I fished 2 years without a fish, and then finally I hooked a steelhead. It took that long.
Yeah.
And
that's
and I wasn't mentored by anyone per se at the time either.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of trial and error and
Figure it
trial
out.
and error. Yeah, trial and error. And it wasn't until I was out in BC, where it started to click and come together for me. And out on Vancouver Island at the time, I was a scuba diver and working on fish farms in Clayoquot Sound. So I got to fish all these summer run steelhead rivers out there and got tied in with a shop. I'm going to say where my guiding began.
Yeah.
Got tied in with a shop in Tofino, and I was basically doing, the overflow a little bit here and there. And then I got the idea, wow, what a way to make a living.
Yeah.
So my wife was, Krista, and I were out there. She wasn't my wife at the time, but we decided, let's make a resume package and send it to every fly fishing lodge in every magazine we can find.
Yeah.
And we were right on the west coast of Vancouver Island in Tofino. So about as far west as you can go in Canada.
Yeah.
Enjoying those sunsets. And we got hired by Keith Wilson on the Miramichi River at Wilson's Lodge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All the way east.
All the way back.
Yeah, exactly. So we packed everything we owned and drove to New Brunswick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
That's so cool.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
So when you were diving out there, like at the fish farms, you were like actually like diving in Tofino and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I was working as a scuba diver for the fish farm.
That's so cool. What a cool job.
I was on a maintenance crew, so we changed nets and
Okay.
cleaned nets and did this and that, and we always had fishing rods with us out there.
I bet, yeah.
At lunchtime, we jig up a couple cod to take home for dinner, kind of
That's
thing.
sweet.
But yeah, it was neat. So, and
I haven't.
yeah,
lived.
that was short lived. I only did that.
What'd you
for
say,
about-
Hilma?
I haven't lived.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Very fair enough.
Yeah.
Poor Yelma. Well, we could scuba dive, Yelma. Like, do you still scuba dive, Tyler?
I haven't in years. I mean, it's cold water diving, right?
Yeah.
So dry suit, wetsuit stuff. And I logged about 350 commercial dives and probably about 100 sport dives. So I had lots under my belt. And but the sport diving was fantastic. I mean, that's the stuff to talk about, right? Around Campbell River and Tofino and all these places. And I guess I should mention, while I lived on Vancouver Island, I did a stint in Campbell River. So I got to fish all Roderick Haig Brown's rivers, of course, too.
Yeah.
We're reading all those books and whatnot. But anyways, getting back, scuba diving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was commercial. That was a short run, about 8 months I did that. And then I started to realize that it wasn't a really great career choice for your physical health, let's say.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of ups and downs, and always watching your tables and dealing with nitrogen and things like that. And ran into some old boys around Tofino who've been diving for 20 years, and I quickly realized that I wanted to save my mind and my body.
Yeah, fair enough. Kind of a cool stint, though. I mean, that's a cool, little thing to look back on.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I loved it. It was good. Except for the days where we had the boat was broken down. We had to go out in a skiff, and the snow was turning to rain about 100 feet over our heads, and we had to suit up and jump in the ocean and choose some cold dives. But I could handle it back then, I guess.
Yeah. When you're young, you can just you're like, this isn't that bad, and then you're like, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Were you sad to leave Tofino? I mean, obviously it was an exciting opportunity, but
Yeah, I mean, I loved it there. I mean, life was pretty darn simple. I mean, Krista and I, we lived in a 26-foot travel trailer rental.
Awesome.
I mean, it leaked and had mushrooms growing in it, I think. What can I say? And but it was good. Life was good. And but hey, the Miramichi was calling.
Yep.
And Atlantic salmon guiding.
Yeah.
So off we went and got settled in out there.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about how I got started in fly fishing, I always say that my time on the Miramichi was my true and honest tuition in fly fishing and being immersed in tradition out there. You know, the Miramichi salmon, the museum out there, and and the old time guides that mentored me out there. At the time, I mean, they've been doing it for years. And, there was a fella there named Lloyd Lyons. And, I'm not even sure if Lloyd Lyons is still with us, but I can remember he was completely ambidextrous with a fly rod. Yeah. He could put it in his left arm and cast a 70 or 80 foot line out, single hand rod, and then swing it through a run and switch it to the other arm and do the same thing. It was amazing to watch. And, how they could raise a salmon on a full floating line on a small number 10, blue charm or something like that was just something I never even could have even dreamed of being able to do for steelhead in Ontario. And I know it can be done on Vancouver Island in BC, but there's a lot of that Skagit style fishing and weighted flies and that kind of thing going on out there, and a lot of winter steelhead as well as summer. And I guess I wasn't quite seasoned enough out there to really get into pursuing steelhead on a dry fly, except until later on. And I got to the Miramichi and I thought, oh my goodness, I should have been doing this out in Vancouver Island, right? But that was quite an experience to really immerse yourself, because the culture is fly fishing there along the banks of the Miramichi, and that's where I don't know, what can I say, was gained most of my education, I think.
Yeah, you learned a lot from the people out there, eh?
Yeah, for sure. It was amazing. So
have you ever, had you ever been out there before? Was that your first time ever being to the Miramichi?
Well, I mean, I've been out there, but not necessarily fishing.
Right. Yeah.
So that was my first experience. I got hired on the Miramichi. Yeah. And at the time, I had really not a really great understanding of what that meant until I got there and spent time on it, right? So,
exactly, yeah. So what was that like just getting started on the Miramichi? Like you guys decided to do this new thing, and you've gone all across the country, and you're out there learning from people. Was it intimidating? Were you kind of like, was this the right move? Like what were the emotions?
Well, from a guiding standpoint, it definitely was intimidating. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. And I mean, I knew what I was doing. I could cast and whatnot. Yeah. But I soon realized that I wasn't nearly as skilled as I thought I was. And it sort of, was humbling for sure. So I had to sit back and guide and try to pull pieces of information from some of these older guys have been doing it forever. And some of them are great. They'd share and teach and show me. And, swinging a fly at a 45-degree angle through a salmon run and the whole two-step and working a run like that, that was all new to me. And I quickly learned that, that was the rules, and that's how you did it. The rotating pools and resting the fish, and out there at the lodge, it's 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening. Yep. And that's that. Like, you get your 8 hours fishing, and between those times, those pools are rested and those fish are rested, which I thought is really cool and unique. And one thing that doesn't happen in Ontario, unfortunately. But I mean, I try to incorporate that into my guiding. If I do a run down the river one day, I try not to hit the same spots, but inevitably you do hit some of them. I mean, if the fish are there, you want to fish it. But I mean, completely unique and eye-opening experience, and I learned a ton there. And it only lasted for a year, and we decided to move on again. One winter in New Brunswick was enough.
Yeah, I bet. I could bet.
Yeah,
pretty brutal.
Still beautiful, New Brunswick, though.
Yeah, New Brunswick is beautiful. And the Miramichi River is incredible. Its fish is so nice. I mean, talking about the Middle Grand where I am now, I compare it to the Miramichi a lot. It fishes very similar. The Grand is a little bigger, a little broader, at least in the Middle Grand area where I was on Wilson's on the main southwest. It was pretty similar in size, but not quite as wide as the Middle Grand, I would say.
Right.
Middle Grand, as you guys know, it's a wide, broad river,
Yeah.
right? The pools,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
call, if I call them pools, the runs, they're not deep, right? Like we were fishing, you can get away with fishing floating lines just like you can on the Miramichi as long as the water temps are there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. Like what I learned there definitely is transferred to the Grand in a lot of situations and with my guiding. So, which you guys experienced yeah. So, I mean, what more can I say?
Yeah,
What was that area that we fished? We stopped as you, me, and Adis, and we were in right when we met up with Phil.
Yeah, that nice.
Second day, the big pool. As soon as we,
We'll keep the name secret, my friend.
oh yes,
Yes,
But
yes,
hey,
we moved it that way. That was
It'll be like
that
the
was,
first pool we hit, basically. The first one.
Joe Penich was there fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an excellent fly tyer. I mean, he's done some stuff at some of the local shops around here before. But he likes that spot. I run into him there from time to time. And
it reminded me of sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, I think he appreciated the fact that we sort of decided to have our lunch and let him fish that run.
Yeah.
Remember, he kind of stopped by and gave me a whole bunch of flies, which was really cool. But, So, and then we were able to slip in behind him and get one, right? So
yeah. Sorry, Joe. Thanks for the flies. They worked. They worked. I love that. So
sorry, Yulma, you were saying something there. I might have rambled on a bit there.
No, I just felt like one of the areas that we were fishing in the deeper part of the Grand, where we kind of went in, reminded me of the mainland a lot, because it felt like you had these bit of little whirlpools that I felt like kept and had fish, and you were saying that they were going to be there, but we didn't give it enough time. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we can pull something out on Saturday. It was a time when I came out to go pee.
There's so much beautiful water. There's so much beautiful water. Like the one that, like, right at the start of our float, you pass that giant berm of trees, and it's like it's amazing looking. It looks, and I know when you say, like, I've never seen the Miramichi, but I have been to New Brunswick and I've seen some other rivers there, and it feels like that vibe is. I know what you mean. It does look similar in that way, you know.
Yeah, it does. Beautiful. The landscape, or the scenery landscape, can be similar. Not the mountains aren't quite as high, and obviously we're in a much more urban environment. But the river itself is nice that way. So
love the Grand.
So Miramichi, you guided there for how many years did you guys guide there? You did.
So we were there only 1 year.
Yeah.
So we did. Yeah, one season we jumped around quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, I would have liked to have gone back, but you know what? A year-round living at the time out there wasn't really possible. And so, I mean, we ended up on unemployment through the winter. And I think I can remember having, like, you know, once I paid my rent and put gas in the car and bought food, I think we had $20 spending money a month. So it didn't go very far. So I was doing some fly tying on the side for one of the local, I'm going to call it local shops out there. It wasn't JW Doak or anything, but there was a local guy who had a shop, and I was tying flies. So that was supplementing my beer money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that. So then where did you guys go after Miramichi? What did you do?
So from the Miramichi, we were hired. I actually think we came back to Ontario for 6 months.
Okay.
And you know, bummed around, and I think I actually worked in a grocery store for a while, and then we got hired in British Columbia at another lodge in the interior. So it was on the Blackwater River, which is a tributary of the Fraser River. Yeah, and I believe it's a Class 1 or Class 2 water, and so it was a dry fly fishery, rainbow trout, and the lodge was called, which I'm pretty sure isn't operating anymore, was called Mackenzie Trail Lodge.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we drove out to Williams Lake, and then we flew in to, it's called Satcha Lake, which the Blackwater flowed in and out of. And there was a lodge in there and a camp. They actually had an airstrip, and so we had to fly in float plane beavers to get in there.
Decent.
And that, it was cool. So it was remote. Yeah, so 4.5 months in there or 4 months or so in there for summer, and guiding the Blackwater River and flying out to all these different lakes in the area and taking people fly fishing for rainbow trout. I mean, fantastic. I mean,
Jeez.
it was great.
This
Yeah.
part of your life is so amazing. You're like the most Dos Equis man, the most interesting man.
Yeah.
You're scuba diving and at fish farms out west, guiding in the Miramichi. Then you come back and raise some money, and then you're out in the middle of nowhere again, guiding. Like, what a cool, way
And
to.
we haven't even gotten to Patagonia yet.
Yeah, what a cool way to make a living. Jesus.
Yeah, well, it was cool. It was awesome. It went on for about 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call it my full-time guiding career before children.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, Mackenzie Trail Lodge was a one-hit wonder too, though. I only spent one season there.
Yeah.
And then what did they do after that? I'm trying to think. I believe from Mackenzie Trail, we went to Patagonia.
Okay.
So actually, I made my connections with people in Patagonia all my time in New Brunswick.
Okay.
That's how we met there was people, there was a fella named Jim Rapine. He's no longer with us, but he was big time fly fishing guide in Alaska back in the 70s. He had his own TV show out there, and he was known as Mr. Alaska or something. And,
wow.
yeah, I mean, he was a little getting up there. I think he was maybe 60, 65 when I connected with him, and Krista and I connected with him. Yeah. And we had established that connection, and we sort of stayed in touch with some emailing and that type of thing. And then we end up in BC, and then we continued that conversation, and we looked into, what was involved in going to Patagonia to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and he reached out to us as well and was interested in us. So we organized that with them, and he brought us on, and we went to Argentina, back to Ontario from BC, and jumped on a plane in Montreal and flew to Buenos Aires. And we had no idea where we were going. And then got on another plane to Bariloche, and then got on a bus to Trevelin. Trevelin. Oh no! So my first year was Argentina. Jim was in Chile. Jim gave us a referral to a lodge owner in Argentina. That's where we ended up the first year. Okay. And it was called O'Farrell's Lodge at the time. O'Farrell's Safaris, I think.
Okay.
So again, that original owner no longer operates that lodge, but I believe there's an operator there now that runs it now, and it's actually a fella I guided with in Argentina named Rance Rathy, and they have a company called PRG, Patagonia River Guides, down there.
Okay.
And him and another fella, Travis, they kind of showed me the ropes down there in Argentina, and I think they live down there full time, and they run this operation.
Cool.
I haven't really been in touch with them, but yeah, it's still there and still going. So it's pretty neat. And we fished, guided on the Rio Grande, it was called. It's not the Rio Grande in Tierra del Fuego,
okay,
but Rio Grande in Argentina, which is a pretty unique river, because I think it's the only river in the whole Cordillera from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, so Rocky Mountains and the Andes, where a river actually originates in the east of the mountains, comes through the mountains, it comes into Argentina, does a big horseshoe, and then cuts back through the mountains again and goes to the Pacific.
Wow, that's wild.
So it's kind of unique. So it comes out of the mountains, and does a big horseshoe in Argentina. So it's high gradient. I think there actually it's actually a big tailwater, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
There's a big lake up in the mountains, and it comes out into Argentina. And Argentina has a lot of grazing and cattle land, so there's big hopper hatches and big hopper banks we used to fish, and of course mayfly caddis. And
I never thought about I've always heard about the hoppers and stuff. I never thought it's because of the ranching and just the landscape and the cows and stuff that there's all these terrestrials.
Yeah, exactly, and there'd be these big high banks, that were a bend in the river where that west or east wind would just blow these grasshoppers down into the river, and the fish would just be gorging on them, and we just throw big, I guess we fished a lot of Chernobyl ants and big hopper patterns and things like that. And,
wow.
I mean, fishing was pretty fantastic.
And this was your first experience fishing down there, was this river?
Yeah, it was, exactly, yeah.
Must have been
it was, and it was funny because I went from the Miramichi, where we were poling these old cedar strip chestnut canoes, which were huge, and I could barely handle one. I learned a bit, but it was tough. I couldn't believe the guys that ran those things. They could pull them straight up river, up a rapid. It was amazing. And then, I tried to learn in that. And then I get down to Argentina and they threw me in an NRS raft with oars and said, there, away you go. So my first kind of what I would call drift boat experience. And,
that's wild.
Yeah, well, you learn quick, let's just say.
I bet.
Real quick. And you try to learn what you can from the other guides around you, which the guys were great and taught me what they could. But there's, again, a lot of trial and error, but you learn and you get rolling. And it was amazing. So, drifting rivers and rafts and casting dry flies and big streamers for big browns. I mean, that was the fishery in that area. So
that's cool, man. Do you have any like standout stories from that river or from down there with trout? Any one trout that you remember stands out in your memory?
Oh my goodness, I don't know if I could. I'll speak to a river and a fish. I'm gonna say one river we used to guide was the Rio Rivadavia.
Okay.
So it was it was called Los Alerces National Park. And so that it's named after the Alerces tree, which is essentially, I'm going to call it the redwood of Argentina. Cool. So they're great big trees up in there, and there's groves of them. Yeah. But this river, and you can imagine the flora and fauna down there is completely different than here, and the birds and everything. So the rivers it's all bamboo and things like that. Wow. Like it's pretty cool. And you go on this Rio Rivadavia, and it's the gin clear river, like, you can see everything in there, and you can spot these fish from a long ways away, and you just row through these trees that you're not used to, and these big tall bamboo shoots, and you're winding your way down through this river, spotting resonant rainbows, browns. And in there, when you asked me about a specific fish, they had landlocked Atlantic salmon down there.
Wow, wild.
So I can remember, it was cool. So I can remember catching these landlocked salmon, and they'd fight just like an Atlantic salmon on the Miramichi, but they were a little bit downsized. And so that fish was kind of like, that was a special fish to catch in that river. They were there, but it was unique, and the backdrop with the bamboo and the gin clear water and
an Atlantic salmon.
Yeah, it was neat. So landlocked salmon down in Argentina.
That's so funny. You went from fishing Atlantics in the Miramichi to fishing Atlantics in South America. Like, what a crazy! I did not know that was a thing.
Lined by bamboo trees.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a great area. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean that would be the most unique place I think I've ever fished.
Yeah.
In that sense. Say. Yeah.
Well, you also fished for Golden Dorado, right? Was this another?
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that was an adventure. So that operator I worked for there was trying to open up. I'm going to call it new frontiers at the time. So, you see Golden Dorado advertised now in the fly fishing magazines and that. And at that time, I think it was in its infancy. There may have been another operation in Argentina that was connected to someone in the States trying to open it up. And there was a bit of a race to try to get in there and establish a lodge and get fishing. So I got sent up there to northern Argentina. So we're not far south from the border of Bolivia, and the city town was called Salta, I think. So, I was with two other people who were local to Argentina. Yeah. One fellow that worked at the lodge, and another one who was an associate of the owner. Took me up there. I didn't speak a word of Spanish hardly. I mean, I spent the days on the river with, American clients.
Right.
And man, talk about crash course in Spanish and learning quick. I had no idea where I was or what I was doing. I was living in this strange house and literally it was like a piece of foam on a frickin' mattress. And I'm like, where are the sheets?
Yeah.
So I can remember taking my t-shirt, and laying it down and then taking my 3 pairs of shorts I had and
oh my God,
laying on top of it because I didn't want to touch this phone. It was pretty sketchy.
Did you have any wet wipes?
So sketch.
It was sketch.
That is so
And
sketch.
I remember, and yeah, so, well, I'm getting off track, but the whole thing was crazy because the guy we had a boat and they'd be looking on the map and they'd pick some river. I know nothing, right? I know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They say, okay, you're going to fish this river today. I'm like, okay, I'm going to fish this river today. Great. And they throw the boat in and a guy was with me. His name was Julio. I remember, a good guy. He looked out for me up there,
Yeah.
Strange situations in a few places where it was like he had to tell people to leave me alone. I almost felt like he was my bodyguard, which, may not have been much of a stretch at times.
Yeah.
Right.
But so we get on this river and away we go. And I'm like, okay, so we're supposed to catch these Golden Dorado. And I had these streamer flies tied up, with deer hair and what have you. And start coming down around this bend in a river, and it looks like a juicy bend. And I throw this fly out, and then I see all these shadows coming up, and I'm like, holy crap, there's Golden Dorado on here. And we hooked and caught some pretty nice fish. And they were just like, I don't know how to describe them. It's like a combination between a steelhead and a piranha, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just have that almost like a trout or salmon shape to them.
Yeah.
And this big head, but a mouthful of teeth, right?
Yeah.
And aggressive on the flies and fight. They fight like a steelhead or an Atlantic salmon, jumping, running. And the water's, 85, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm like thinking, there cannot be enough oxygen, dissolved oxygen in this river to surely support a fish that wants to be that active. But yeah, what a fantastic sport fish. Like that's on my bucket list to go back and do again. They're a great fish to
You're the first person I met who has I got a bucket list to go back and do again.
A bucket list.
Yeah, a re-bucket list.
It's pretty neat. I mean,
they are cool looking, man. They look so cool. Golden Dorado, geez, just such an interesting looking fish. And I can imagine they are quite the fish to catch.
Yeah, well, they're pretty neat. I mean, and throughout that whole experience, I mean, I'm talking about the good fishing experience, but I mean, I remember them putting me on some other river where it was chocolate milk, and they're like, fish it, and I'm like, can't fish it. You gotta fish it. I'm like, I'm not fishing that. I'm gonna catch a fish in that, and off I go down the river for a day. It was like, I don't know, it was 20 days or something I spent up there, and I fished all these different rivers, and I think 2 out of 10 were worthwhile, fishing again. And it could all be timing. Been timing. I think they the rains came and blew a river out, just like if you're steelhead fishing and this and that. But that was my experience, right? And,
So that was all just scouting for this guy that owned this lodge that you were working at.
Exactly.
That's wild, man. And he's just barely sets you up like that foam mattress thing. My God, what a gig that is. Jesus.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember the food was brutal. I ate soda crackers for breakfast and water. Didn't eat all day.
Jesus.
And then at night, they'd take me out for dinner, and it was pounded chicken, deep fried like a schnitzel almost, and a quart of beer. It was quite a regiment.
Yeah,
I think that's quite the scenario.
But hey, I got to fish for Golden Dorado though.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's pretty cool. Cool. So, how did the stint in Patagonia and Argentina and Chile, how did that end?
Well, I guess finally I made my way back to the lodge down in Trevelin, and continued on with my guiding there with trout and brown trout and what have you. And the season ended, right? So it was time to come back home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back and maintained that connection in Chile. Actually, while we were there, we got hosted at the lodge in Chile by Jim Rapine, who I had mentioned earlier, which was nice. And we had sort of made a gentleman's agreement that we were headed there next year, which was good.
Yeah.
And back to BC, and we got hired at another lodge out there called, I'm going to call it a conglomerate, called West Coast Resorts. I believe they operate a lot of salmon lodges out on the coast. I think they're still around. Yeah. But they had this one lodge in the interior of northern Tweedsmuir Provincial Park in BC. And they had a big, beautiful log cabin lodge there, which was a fly fishing lodge.
Cool.
And on the Redfern River was the main river we fished, and the lodge was located on Utsick Lake, it was called.
Okay.
And which was pretty interesting lake, a big, deep lake. And at one time, that river was cut off by a big dam that Alcan Aluminum built.
Okay.
And I believe what happened is there's some steelhead. They got trapped up in there, and they've sort of become residents in this lake.
Wow.
This huge lake, and then the river that flows out of it. I'm not going to say we caught some very large fish on flies, but not in the Redfern. We caught nice fish in the Redfern. Yellow golden stonefly hatches galore. It was insane.
Oh, that's fun.
But in the tributaries that flowed into Utsick Lake, there was some of these big fish that looked like a steelhead, and I can remember catching them on gray drakes.
Yeah.
When the big mayflies, it would bring these big trout up, and guiding people up there, and see it once the drakes came off. Oh my God, it was amazing. Like, we'd be driving around the lake and targeting these fish just coming up and go, 6 and 7 pound beautiful rainbow trout that looked like steelhead on 5-weight rods. It was fantastic
That's
stuff.
wild.
And,
That's
yeah, it
wild.
was neat. I mean, it was a much better operation than Mackenzie Trail. They had Redfern River was beautiful. It was big and broad, and you could float it. So we floated it in pontoons. So we got to do drifts, and we drifted other rivers that we could fly out to as well in the area, as well as lakes, with belly boats and things like that. So fantastic lodge. It's still there. I think might be owned by someone out of Europe now. If you Google Redfern River Lodge, you'll get a hit on it. But I think they cater to European clientele or something. So
Right.
yeah. So we actually did two seasons there. So we went back to Patagonia from there to Chile, to Jimmer Pines Lodge, which is Futaleufú Lodge, which is now owned, if you Google that, it's owned by Nervous Waters.
Okay.
From the States. So you probably see that advertised on Instagram and things like that. Yeah. So that was the lodge where we were before Nervous Waters had bought it out.
Yeah.
And I mean, that place, I talk about the Miramichi intimately. I talk about the Futaleufú River and that lodge pretty intimately. I mean, I learned how to handle a horse there and ride horseback.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, that's fun.
We were drifting the river, and it was much more unique than the Argentine side too. A lot more character to the river.
Yeah.
There was one pool there we used to fish, and it was called the Lagoon. So if you've ever fished the Niagara River at the whirlpool, it looks like the river itself looks so incredibly similar to that. It's just scaled down a little bit.
Okay.
Food is big water. It's big water, but it's not Niagara size. But it's a great big pool, and it's a great big back eddy. And we used to slip the rafts in there, and we just roll around and we just watch. And if you can imagine, because that water kind of has a big chute and pours in, like, let's say, the whirlpool in the Niagara, and there's all kinds of current seams and different things happening in this back eddy, and these 3 or 4 rainbows would just kind of all of a sudden appear up. They'd ride up a current seam. And it'd be like bone fishing. It'd be like 10 o'clock, 30 feet.
Oh, so cool.
And we'd have the big grasshopper patterns on, right?
Yeah.
You had to be quick and responsive, and that was the deal. Like, it was on the clock and a distance, throw it out, get a drift, catch a fish or not, and you'd only get 1 or 2 shots, and then they'd just stay on that current boil or that seam and then disappear back down to the depths. And then you'd be searching again.
That's
and
wild.
Then behind you, 50 feet, there's 2 rainbows. And then you'd try to go for them, and you could just go in circles
Man, what a crazy
all day long in this big eddy, and it was freaking awesome.
That's so cool.
It was
Yeah.
cool.
How deep was it there? Like, do you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. I bet you that pool, it had to be, if it was 50 feet deep or maybe more.
Yeah.
In the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because over years and years of that water pouring in, I bet you she's gouged out.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good, pretty down
Probably
deep. Like,
so many fish in there. Oh my God.
oh, the river was loaded. It was amazing.
Yeah.
You seem like a pretty adaptable guy. I feel like there must be like one of these places have like taught you a massive lesson, or something that you remember that's just like, man, that was a tough challenge. Because like I feel like because I know you and all these stories, I'm like, oh yeah, he'll figure it out, and usually do. But there's gotta be something. There's gotta be something that was a challenge that you're just like, man.
Eating soda crackers every day for a month.
Yeah, I guess that would be. But
that was a challenge. That was tough, man. That was crazy.
It's a good point, though. I guess it's like a matter of what do you like when you started guiding on these rivers. Like, was there a system to how you figured them out quickly? Because it was a season you're there for, or 2 seasons, right? I mean, I'm sure you're learning from people too, but
yeah. Well, so I guess I have to like go back way back in time to answer that question, because I used to do a lot of canoe tripping and paddling and whitewater paddling when I was young. And I learned how to read water really well. So that skill really translated well to my fishing, and handling rafts and drift boats and new rivers, and always watching ahead and looking. I mean, that was a huge asset.
Yeah.
And at that point I had a pretty good idea where the fish are going to be and what they liked. So it was just a matter of, playing the game and, being confident, don't second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And, and get in there and fish it. And, one spot may not produce, but the next will.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long. You do a drift 2 or 3 times and you get some fish. And let's face it, the fishing down there is fantastic. Like, it's pretty hard to go wrong if you've got a base of knowledge. You're gonna sort it out. Plus, you have other people to learn from. Yeah, the first couple of weeks are kind of brutal.
Yeah.
You do a lot of second guessing and that things, but you settle in, you figure it out, and I mean, that was, I think, part of it that I liked the most was that challenge.
Yeah.
And and I still like that today. If I plan a canoe trip into Algonquin in May and get on a piece of water I've never known, that I love it. Like, I love figuring it out, and that sense of adventure. I mean, that's where it's all at for me. That's the part that drove me to want to go to these places and do it. Right. So it's cool. I mean,
fish some beautiful, beautiful water. That pool sounds insane. Sounds so cool. 50 feet deep, stacked with trout. You're sight fishing for them and casting. Oh
so
God.
Fun.
So cool.
There was one pool we called the fellas I guided with in Chile were exceptional guys. Bill and Eric, and great guys from New Jersey.
Okay.
And they really took me under their wing. They showed me the ropes. They were great guys. Yeah. And he had a spot called Fish in a Barrel. And it was just this one little eddy, and it was a real tough current. You had to hold the boat in the current. It ripped down the one side, but then there was this back eddy. Yeah. And there's this big overhanging willow, and you had to row like hell to hold the boat there and try to get people to make a cast in there.
Oh my God.
But there's all these browns and rainbows just milling about in there. If you could get your fly and get a presentation, they'd eat.
That's cool.
Fish in a barrel. You always tried to get one. Yeah, we always tried to get one out of there on the float. So
cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So pretty fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not even at the Grand yet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But now you are at the Grand.
Yeah. How did so then was this after all of that stuff? Is that when you kind of made your way back up here and planted some roots?
Yeah, so to speak. I think I ended up actually back in we were in Prince Edward County for a while. That's where my wife Krista's family's from. Not much opportunity for trout fishing in that area. I did a lot of hacking around Lake Ontario and river mouths trying to catch browns and steelhead and things like that, and this and that. But I always found my way, coming back to Lake Huron tributaries, fishing the Bayfield and the Maitland and that kind of thing. But anyways, getting back to that, we ended up there, and then we ended up down in London. And you know what? The guiding thing kind of got almost shelved. I mean, I had some fishing friends that obviously I continued to fish all the time. But we were married. We got married and we started a family, and time was tight.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I sort of had to put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
But there's life changes and this and that, and I always kept my fingers in it and tried to keep my contacts alive. And I ended up buying a drift boat when I lived there, and ended up making the move up this way to Paris because I knew about the Grand and I had been fishing it and started to fish it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk about the timing thing. One day I ended up, I think, down at Five Oaks somewhere on a Isonikia hatch, and the river was boiling with trout. And I was like, "Oh my God, am I in Patagonia right now?"
Yeah. I'm back.
It was insane. And I'm like, "This is the spot."
Sweet.
And
good feeling.
Yeah, and we moved here, and I made some contacts locally, and I kind of fired things up, and it was pretty low key at first and for a long time. And and it takes a while to build a reputation because I'd been out of it for a while. And I can remember going around to some of the fly shop owners and stuff at the time and introducing myself, and they're all like looking at me like, "Who's this guy?" Like,
right.
We got Mike Verhoofs here and Ken Chandler and these guys, and
Yeah.
who are you? And you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, well, I mean, at least that was kind of the vibe I got initially.
Sure.
It's a tough nut to crack, and I'm not knocking anyone, but it's a bit of a tough nut to crack. You have to establish yourself, and so be it. That's how it should be.
Right.
But I just stuck with it, and I started getting people out, finally convinced somebody to pay me to take them fishing.
Yeah.
And we caught some fish, and it, the snowball effect starts, right?
Right.
And now I think at the time when I started there, you hardly saw anybody on the river, and now you see a lot of people. And I think, fortunately or unfortunately, I think part of that is potentially the fact that I set up shop, and people started to realize that more and more people started to realize that there's a fishery there that needs to be paid attention to. But it works, and I'm glad to see people out using the river. I mean, it's a resource there for everybody to use.
Yeah.
And rivers need help, as you know, in Southern Ontario. So the more awareness there is, the better, as long as everybody's respecting each other out there.
Yeah.
Do anything. Now I'm getting into the politics, but
that stuff has to happen. You're right, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're never going to stop people from fishing, and we shouldn't, right? What we need to do is foster a culture of respect, and that's just we have to do that, So if there's gonna be lots of anglers, and it's busy, and we all talk about it, especially during steelhead season, it's like, God, there's so many people, but it's like, yeah, but you're one of those people, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's just the way it is. Like, instead of no matter what you do, if you're a guide or us, like, we promote fishing in Southern Ontario, like, people are gonna go fishing. It's just like, it's the way it is. Instead, let's get them to respect the river and try to have that culture, right?
Yeah, respect each other. I mean, we could learn a lot from a place like the Miramichi River with pool rotation and those kinds of things. And I think if there's a river in Ontario that's been able to establish that culture, at least to a fairly significant degree. It's not perfect, but it is fishing on the Grand River. And some of the guys before me, had already started that. That culture, Neil Holding, and who fished this river, and Larry Halleck and Larry Mellers and these guys that have been around longer than me. And the beauty of it was for them is that they kind of had the river to themselves. And I think they rotated the Five Oaks pool, and outside of that, they didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine? Oh, no one knows about Five Oaks. Everybody knows about Five Oaks now,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I mentioned that. Obviously, anyone who steelheads the Grand, that's an area that's known. I mean, that's probably got to be the premier steelhead run in, the Great Lakes watershed, right? I mean, there's one or two others that are out there on the Maitland or the Saugeen or what have you, but.
You're right, though. Etiquette's interesting. We haven't really. Yeah. We don't speak about etiquette that often, but it's true. That is another thing that needs to happen, I think, in Ontario. Just have everybody on the same page in terms of, like, let's enjoy the resources together and not, like get in each other's way, so we can all have fun,
Yeah, and I think the the right people who can influence that are in place and have that attitude.
Yeah.
You know, the shop owners.
Yeah.
And the people that work there. And someone like me, I mean, when I'm out there with my clients, I walk them through that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna come, if you're from Toronto and you're with me for the day, and you know, I expect, unless you know you're not the type of person that's going to venture out on your own, that you just want to fish with a guide. But if you're independent and you're going to go and try that, you know, observe and follow pool rotation.
Yeah.
And you know, then everybody gets a chance at a fish.
Yeah.
And hey, fun. If I'm rotating a pool and I take a steelhead and I land it, I step out of the rotation and go back to the top. You know, and you know, that's just the way I do it. And I got my fish. So
yeah.
I mean, I'd like to catch 2 or 3. Obviously, we all would. And if you're a weekend warrior,
one's okay, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it is, especially if it's a special fish like you catch on the Grand, and maybe you fished a floating line and a traditional fly, and you've caught your fish. I mean, that's you know, go sit down on the bank and enjoy that experience.
I mean, 100%.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a nice.
Yeah, I remember when we were. On when you took us out and Mitch caught his. I don't think Mitch fished again for another like 25 minutes. You know.
Yeah.
So
I believe he smoked a cigar, didn't he?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. He was like, I remember that too. It was so funny. You're like, I'm gonna smoke my cigar after lunch, and you're like, no, I'm gonna catch a fish first. Then I was like, I will reward myself with a cigar.
Yeah. Wait, what can I say, guys?
That happened.
What can I say?
What can you say, man? I associate Grand River steelheading with Mitch. Like, I'm like, that's Mitch's.
I love fishing the Grand River steelhead. It's a great river, man. Like, to your point.
I love it too. I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying, like, when I think of steelheading,
it's so nice.
Or when I think of Mitch, I think of like fall, cigars, steelhead on the Grand. Yeah. Not the credit, not the whatever. Like, you know, that's definitely your vibe.
It is.
It was a fun day.
Plus, pragmatically, the river is cold as hell.
Yeah.
So rotating, I mean, at the very least, keeps you warm.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you get to like have a snack, keep you warm. You got to pee eventually.
Yeah.
Those roads are long.
I gotta get one of those.
Just rotate him. It was such a pleasurable experience when I was in the Gaspé 2 seasons ago, you know, and because you start chatting with just random people waiting to step in, you know, and you start chatting, meeting people.
Kind of fun.
Start like, oh, what flights are you using? Oh,
yeah.
You know, it becomes like part of the fun. I know.
Well, everybody's nice to each other. Everybody's friendly, and you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, meeting people out there on the river, and I mean, I know I have met people out there and established, you know, friend fishing relationships from there, right? So that's great. I mean, it's a big part of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just need to get some boots.
So you though, you're also involved with.
Middle Grand Chapter.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So how did you get involved with them?
Well, hey, Larry Halleck and Larry Mellors, I believe, are the one who instigated I'm going to call it the reforming of the Middle Grand Chapter, because it was established at one time, and they obviously were very involved. You know, I think they spearheaded lots of things, but for one example, there used to be a dam there at the mouth of Whiteman's Creek, you know, where the Five Oaks came in, and you know, they facilitated with a bunch of partners and other people who are involved. So don't ask me to start naming names, because I don't know everybody. But you know, that they had that dam removed, which
huge.
I mean, it just allows fish movement in and out of the creek, right? For steelhead and resident trout, and it improves the fishery, right?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, those are the kinds of things. Now we're not quite there with our chapter now. We've only been reestablished, I think, for 5 years, if I remember correctly. There's lots of things we'd like to do, and I know we have ideas and things that are pending or in the works, which I can't really get into specifics on, because I don't want to, at the risk of maybe something not actually happening.
Yeah, that's okay.
Or getting out, but we have done a ton of, or getting back to how I got involved. The guys did a town hall meeting and reestablished the executive. which I volunteered for right away as a director at large. And I got involved there, and a lot of it in the early stages was just kind of really learning from these guys, the veterans, I'll say. And obviously you're going to say Larry Halleck's name again, being a biologist with the MNR, and Larry Mellors, who's been a guide and involved in all kinds of conservation organizations up on the Saugeen and what have you, and done a ton of work. And Warren Urix, another biologist, is with, these guys got all this. And I'm sorry if I'm leaving anyone out, because I know there's lots of people, but just listening and being around the table with these guys and hearing what they have to say, and trying to gain an understanding of how things work and how we can get things done. I've never worked for the MNR. I'm not a biologist. I have an aquaculture diploma, but so I have pretty good understanding of fish and how they work and where they live, and lots of experience. But and I mean, over the years we've done restoration projects on a lot of little creeks that feed into the Nith River and Whiteman's Creek and the Middle Grand River. And I don't know, 5 years ago, I was out there guiding. I had a couple really tough seasons trying to catch a fish. And I think there was one year, and I don't know how many days I did, but if I boated 5 steelhead in a season, I was pulling my hair out. I was like, I think I'm going to have to pack it in. Like, where are the fish? Like, they're not here anymore. And as soon as I had a chance to get involved with Trout Unlimited, I was on it, and I was in. And I'm telling you, the work we've done, and it's not that hard to do, the actual physical work. I mean, the landowner contacts and getting all the people on board and permitting and all that stuff is the challenging part. But as soon as you go into these creeks and make improvements, whether it's removing debris or adding debris, and get that sediment flushing and expose that spawning gravel and giving the fish access, it's everything. The idea of stocking is obsolete, in my opinion. If you give the fish access, and they can spawn and they can get good recruitment, and the fish are going to come. And I mean, every day this year I've driven down and crossed different bridges at Whiteman's, and I'm seeing steelhead in the pools there that are like I've never seen before. And it's all, I mean, climate has a lot to do with it. I mean, if you get a drought summer, you're going to lose a lot of young fish. So we've had some fairly stable summers, good temperatures. It's allowed over the last 5 years, allowed these fish to reestablish, and they're back in droves this year. I'll tell you, the river's chocked full. At least the tribs are. They don't like to hang around in the main stem. It's like a super highway. They fire up, they hold up for a bit, and then they shoot up these tribs. But man, there's a lot of fish in there, and some really big ones. And it's really, really good to see, to feel like, you've sort of been a part of that solution, right?
And it's making an impact.
That's really positive.
That's really cool. It's really cool. Really good to see. So
it doesn't take, I've always kind of had an unscientific view that if, it doesn't take that long for fish to fix themselves, and they lay so many eggs. They can stock quote unquote themselves way better than we can. Given, like you said, given the opportunity. I mean, you've been involved for 5 years and you've seen a massive increase in population. That's pretty rad.
It's pretty cool.
Relatively short window, right?
Yeah, I mean, we started doing that work 5-6 years ago, and like we're there. We got the fish back. I mean, and there's lots more to do, and weather and climates, and who knows? There'll be 4 more beaver dams built on some creek, and the steelhead might get cut off, but we continually monitor that and try to make sure that they're getting access. And with a little bit of work, I mean, I say a little bit of work, I think there's quite a lot of work that goes on in the background, but my role there as a director at large over the years, I tried to help with the fundraising as best I could, and run some GoFundMe campaigns, and we have a website, not a website. I guess I hope you guys can throw this in, but I'll mention.
Oh yeah, at the end we'll plug in.
Yeah, we have Neil Leduc and this was Neil Leduc's idea. You're familiar with Neil Leduc? He worked with Mike Verhoof there up on the Maitland and Fly Fitters.
Yeah.
So Mike guides up there, Neil guides up there. Great guy. He reached out to our chapter with this idea about having local tyers donate flies, and we put them up for auction and sell them. So it's a Facebook page. Yeah. It's called Saving Streamers. So we kind of piloted it last year in I'm going to say March and April. And hey, I think we raised, I don't know the exact number in front of you, but it was over $1,000 in like 3 weeks selling these flies, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, hey,
Saving streamers.
Yeah, exactly. Saving streamers. So check it out. So we haven't been too active in the last little while, but right now I'm soliciting donations, fly donations, and we look for like six at a time from a guy, and we'll put them up and auction them off. So Neil and I have been chatting again. We're trying to get things. We kind of shut it down with COVID because we don't want to mail out flies and that kind of thing. But we're gonna get her up and going, and I'm picking up some flies this week from another guy, and so we're gonna get a little bit of a pool going. And so if anyone's out there is willing to donate, we'll take it, because that money. Neil and I decided that this isn't 100% for sure. It's where the money can be. Do the most benefit, but we sort of said, 50% goes to the Maitland and 50% will go to the Grand watershed. So
cool.
I like that.
It's pretty cool. So
we'll put that link in the show notes so people can find it, and you go check out the show notes on our click through on our website. You can find that link.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Buy 6 flies that Yilma himself has tied. You'll know where to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Yilma, you're going to take a bunch of flies.
Yeah, we'll take a donation, Yilma.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And so, as the director at large, just trying to support the other executive and learn from them has really been my role.
Yeah.
And getting out to the work days, that's a ton of fun. Get a great group of people. We all go work in a stream for a couple hours and then go have a pint afterwards, right?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Talk about fishing and biology and fish and
nerd out.
All this stuff, right?
That,
and then, it's cool. And but recently, so Larry Halleck was our president.
Yeah.
He's I want to say he's not stepping back. He's still playing a very significant role. But we set up some subcommittees, some strategic planning, that kind of thing. So Larry's he's decided to head up one of these subcommittees. So he stepped down as president, and I think I've mentioned to you guys that Heine Kovacs has stepped in or was elected as president, which is really cool and exciting. So I'm going to say the next generation is kind of getting involved, and we're trying to keep this alive and move it forward. So I was nominated as a VP. And actually, Larry Mellors and Larry's going to mentor me a little bit. We're co-VPs.
Okay.
And so, I'm there, and I'm learning and still trying to obviously raise money and support our president, Heine, where I can.
Yeah.
If she asks for it. And I mean, it's just fun. Like it's all about learning and helping.
It's important.
Helping for sure. So.
It's important to get involved in that way.
It's the story. And I mean, we got a great group of young people there, like Adam Pett, who you guys know.
Adam, yes, fantastic.
Yes, Adam. I can't even believe we haven't talked about Adam.
I know. I was thinking about that. I was like, shit, Adam's going to be like, when are they going to say how awesome of a guy I am? Adam was great. Adam, you're great, man.
You're awesome, Adam.
Yeah.
And so he's on the executive as well. As a director at large, mentioned Heine. I think her little sister Bernadette is on there, and then we have who am I going to leave out? Barry Buckwald is still there. He heads up production. Scott Palandri, Andy Dietrich communications.
Right on.
Jason Cashback. I mean, all these great people. Amanda is on there as well. So we have a lot of new people on the executive this year, and some of the veterans who have been around are still playing very significant roles, but turning over some responsibility to us, and So it's really cool, like a bit of a succession starting to happen. And, at the same time, some pretty cool stuff going on in the background that hopefully will come to fruition in the future. So
I'm super happy to hear that. And we'll get involved how we can, because I think it's great, the stuff that you guys do there. And shout out to Larry and all the fellows there that started, restoration on that part of the river years ago, because it's obviously helped a lot, like now we can fish it, enjoy it. So it's super important. And
really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what else happens.
Great. Yeah, me too. So
fantastic.
Very exciting stuff.
Yes.
Excited for this weekend. I mean, I guess everybody who's listening won't know which weekend we're talking about, but we're going we're heading out. I don't know if Ollie wants to talk about that.
Well, maybe before we get into that, Mitchie's Fishies 5.
Oh yeah, true.
We got 5 questions, Mitchie's Fishies, and then we can talk about maybe this weekend and then rock and roll. Mitchie's Fishies 5, Tyler, we ask these same 5 questions every single guest on the show, and just like to hear the answers. We'll get lots of cool stuff, and we're gonna make a book one day with all the people that we've had on the show with all their answers. So let's do it.
Okay.
Mitchie's Fishies 5 time. So the first question, Mitchie's Fishies 5, is what is your favorite fish and why?
Favorite fish?
Yes, the favorite fish.
My favorite fish is a steelhead.
Nice, right on. How come? Why is steelhead?
Well, I mean, I think maybe we spoke to this a little bit on the river.
Yeah.
But a steelhead is an anadromous fish. So they're born in a tributary of a river, and they hatch there. They live there for 2, 3, 4 years. They smolt out. They make their way all the way back to the ocean. In this case, one of our Great Lakes, whichever one it might be. Mm-hmm. And then they grow big, and they come back to their home stream. And to me, that's quite a life cycle.
Yeah.
A feat in itself, let's just say, and find their way back to where they were born to keep the cycle alive. And in order to do that, you obviously got to have a fairly I don't know, what would you call it,
like a spirit.
Mind in a spirit. Yeah. And they're also pretty mean.
Yeah.
You got to be mean out there. You got to be aggressive to survive.
Yeah.
And tough, and hence the name Steelhead, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, to get out there and fish for them, well, all of you guys out there guys and girls who steelhead out there, they are not easy to catch. Mm-hmm. They'll be in the river. You guys know, you spend a day out there. I mean, we had nips, we had grabs, we had fish on, we lost them. Mitch, you hooked one, you landed it. Thank goodness.
Yes.
Saved the day.
Yes.
That was awesome.
And I hooked another one that day too, just saying. I know I missed it, which was terrible that I missed it. I'm not even going to speak to that, but
Yulma had one on too, right?
Yeah, Yulma had
one on.
It was a wild day. Did. It was a good day.
Yeah, it was. There was
I
action.
caught a bass. Thanks.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up, Aldo.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. You caught 3, didn't you?
I love it.
Yeah. It was like the size of my.
I know it's freezing on us.
He's frozen.
That's the first time Aldo's ever frozen on us. Oh, he's back. There he is.
He's back.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to the steelhead. Yeah. I mean, fantastic fish, mean, extremely hard to catch, and when you do get one, that pursuit to catch one, and it finally pays off. You got a fantastic, strong fighting fish, and I can't think of a better fish to pursue, really, to be honest with you. I mean, there's lots of close seconds, but
for sure.
I gotta go with steelhead.
Yeah, it's a tough question,
Favorite
but
fish.
Good answer, man. I love that one, steelhead. Okay, number 2 is, if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, assuming it's the best time to go, where would you go and why?
I would go to the Middle Grand River,
nice.
Ontario, and fish for steelhead.
Awesome.
But if I didn't have that option, I would maybe go to, let me think now. You know what? Honestly, I'd go to BC and fish for steelhead in the Skeena tributaries, or I'd head south in the Caribbean and do flats fishing for bones or permit or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty rad. That'd be pretty nice.
I think you're the second person in a row to, like, I think Eland, our last guest, he did a freshwater and a saltwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good way to do
version. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, hey, you got you can turn your winters into summers and
Yep.
fish year round.
Yep.
And drink a cold Kalik on the flats of the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Bonefish are going by. So hey,
Sounds awesome, man. Oh my God.
great way to go.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's exactly where I'd be if
Yeah.
I could
If you could travel.
fly
I know.
anywhere.
I know.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Number 3 of Mitchie's Fishes 5 is, what is your best or favorite fishing memory, or one of your favorite fishing memories ever? All time.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. Like I say, we edit. We can spend 20 minutes right now thinking if you want.
Favorite fishing memories, man. There's so many, so many
Sometimes it's just the
experiences
first
to
one
draw
that
from.
pops in your head.
I'm gonna share one memory, and maybe this is a little sentimental or personal, but it's my daughter Mira, who she passed away about going on 6 years ago, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's tough go. But I used to take her down onto the Grand. There was a little spot there, and she was I'm going to say 7 years old, and I put a fly rod in her hand and showed her how to roll cast. And she took that rod and she fired a nice 35-foot roll cast out like it was nothing. And I was like, holy shit, that's pretty good. And swung a nice little partridge and orange wet fly through a riffle and proceeded to catch, one trout after another, 8, 10, 12 inchers.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic. And there's a little spot out there in the Grand. I call it Mira's Run. I don't tell anybody that, but that's her spot, and that's my favorite fishing memory.
Oh man, that's a great memory.
That's amazing.
Man.
Best one ever.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's the best
Love
one
it.
we've ever heard.
Yeah, you take the cake there.
That's beautiful, man. See, honestly, fishing with family and on home water, I mean, it's great. It's like nothing really beats it. You can fish the Seychelles and be like, it's the home water and the memories. That's the best.
Family, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez, love that. Okay, number 4, Mitchie's Fishies 5, is, why do you fly fish? What do you get out of fly fishing? Why do you keep going out there time and time again?
Well, I mean, the water itself, moving water. I'm drawn to moving water.
Yeah.
Love the way it feels. I like standing in it. I like being around it. I like to listen to it.
Yeah.
And the insects and the obviously the creatures, the fish themselves are unique in the sense, cold-blooded, and they can breathe underwater. I mean, maybe that was my draw to scuba diving, but I love being around water. I can't get enough of it. I'd live on it if I could.
Yeah. I love that answer. That's great. Like, we haven't heard water a ton of times. I know, I think one of our guests, Jeff from Algonquin Park, talked about water because, again, rafting, scuba diving, all that kind of stuff. You've done all that stuff, and it makes sense. Your life has just kind of always revolved around water. Yeah,
well, now, if you ever read Roderick Haig Brown, I think I never really realized it until I read, I can't even remember, but he talks about the rivers being the lifeblood or the veins of the earth. And I mean, the first time I read that, I was like, yeah, wow, like that is totally right. And, being around that moving water, and it takes, that just like, all those pressures on life and all these distractions and things, that all just kind of
totally
disappears, and you become sort of one with your environment, and you find that place that you I don't know, you can't get to. It's, I don't know, what is it? Is it spiritual? Is it a kind of a thing? Like, I'm not a religious man, but
I know what you mean.
I don't know how it's to explain that. And I just feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel very connected to my surroundings, and hey, and people.
Yeah.
It's great. What can I say?
Yeah, I love that. No, 100%. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally. I totally know what you mean. Okay, number 5 in Mitchie's Fishies 5. This one is, what fly pattern best represents you and why? So if you were a fly, what would you be and why?
If I was like a bug fly or a fishing fly?
An actual fishing pattern.
Fishing pattern.
Hook and all.
Hook and all. What would I be? Oh my goodness. I think I would be a muddler minnow.
Nice, right on. Okay.
Really?
Why
Nice.
why a muddler minnow?
Or the many variations of it.
Like the one that was given to you as a gift on the river the other day from Joe.
Yeah, true.
Remember he
Yeah,
made
well-
like swinging muddler minnow thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the it was tied with the pine squirrel head. So
Yeah.
that was a muddler pattern.
Yeah.
But if I was to go back to a more traditional style, like a spun deer hair
Deer
with
hair,
the
yeah.
turkey wing,
Yeah.
that pattern and the variations you can tie from that is so incredibly versatile.
Yeah.
From trout to steelhead to salmon to even bass. Like you can. I always called it something I used to do in Algonquin Park for brook trout, or even if I'm running out of bass flies, is I get a nice fully dressed muddler and grease it up and like pop it on the surface.
Yeah.
The old grease muddler trick, I call it. Or
Yeah.
you can add eyes to a muddler and sink it,
Yeah.
and fish it, tie it big and articulated to fish for browns.
Yeah.
Or you can tie a steelhead muddler version, or even because essentially muddler minnow is a sculpin imitation,
Yeah.
which never really, like, I get that it looks like it imitates that, but a muddler tends to fish fairly high on the water column,
Mhm.
where a sculpin is on the bottom. Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
say
yeah.
so.
It's true.
It's kind of interesting that it works. So I think a muddler mimics a lot of the time like a big fall caddis at times, or you
True.
can tie a muddler into a variation that matches that, and or you can scale it way down, and it's incredibly versatile pattern, and you can tie the different variations of it, and it'll fish and catch almost any species.
Yeah.
So if I was a fly and I wanted to catch fish, I'd be a muddler.
I love
If
There
I
you
was
go.
a fly and I didn't want to get eaten,
that. Yeah.
I'd
What's the
be,
shittiest fly?
I would be a those like 6-packs you buy at Canadian Tire.
Yeah, yeah,
those
exactly. Yeah.
Can you
cheap
get the
dry
bee?
They explode.
flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd be. If I didn't want to catch fish, that's what I would be.
I love
Sorry,
Muddler Minnow's
sorry,
great.
Canadian Tire. Yeah,
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
Canadian
step it
Tire.
up though, Canadian Tire. Like, geez, you guys want us to, talk good about your flies? Let's see their fly game step up. Come on.
Yeah,
Jeez Louise.
yeah, exactly.
Muddler
Jeez
Minnow,
Louise.
that's a great. I love the Muddler Minnow. That's a great answer. That's
Cool.
fantastic. That's Mitchie's Fishy's Fives, man. That's the show. I mean, that was a great conversation. It was a ton of fun chatting. I hope you had fun.
I did.
Good
was.
stuff.
It's great. It's great to see you guys again, man.
Great to see
It's
you.
Yeah.
looking forward to Saturday, Sunday.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
baby.
let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
we're
that.
gonna float on. Tyler's taking us out again, because we already
Yeah.
did 2 days on the river with him and Adam, which was an awesome 2 days. And for anybody listening, you gotta go.
Yeah,
You gotta see this river through a float, and you gotta eat Tyler's food also.
Yeah, we had burgers on the river, turkey
We had
soup.
burgers on the river.
Oh my
and it
god,
was
I
like,
forgot about that.
oh my god,
So
it was
fun.
like burgers in the river. Well, I'm eating a double cheeseburger, and Mitch is fighting a steelhead. Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
And-
that was great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah, it was
and
awesome.
Adam and Tyler are the great guys. Just great guys to have in the water. Learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Oh,
you gotta you're stuck with us again.
No, it's gonna be fun.
So
Well, let's tell the people
I
out
think I
there
froze.
how good you guys are as guides, because I've been steelheading a ton of times with Mitch and Aldo, whatever, but I've been using the single-handed. I haven't been really perfecting my casts. And then I get there and Adam's on me 24/7, and I'm feeling confident to go double-handed all the time for steelhead. So I feel
Yeah.
like, you guys can guide us for catch steelhead and show you the river and whatever, but the casting techniques that you guys
And
provide
great
is
instructors as well, for
it's
sure.
great, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I was gonna say I really like, I'm a new relatively to spay fishing.
Hmm.
I think this is 4 years with a spay rod now. 4 years with a spay rod. Man,
It's
improved greatly.
interesting. It's interesting. I've been asked the question, what percentage of your clients are experienced versus beginners? And not that you guys are beginners, but we do a ton of teaching and
Yeah.
instructing. I mean, you gotta, right? Because
Yeah,
a huge part of your people that come to see you are they're there to learn. So
Right.
you got to incorporate that into the day. And I think, I like to think that I can pride myself on the fact that I can take someone who's never caught a steelhead, put a 200 rod in their hands, and hey, first part of the day is a little rough. There's a lot to learn, a lot to sort out, but
Yep.
By midday, things are starting to come around, and you've learned enough that you can get the fly out there and present it.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people hook their first steelhead, and it's really cool. And
what a great section to learn on
Yeah.
for double handed as well.
Yeah, it's a nice wide, broad river. The runs lend themselves perfectly to swinging flies.
Yeah.
And you know what? The weighting's pretty good too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not crazy. Some of the runs are pretty benign, pretty easy going.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, you can get out of the boat, swing a run, not worry about. I shouldn't say not worry about it, but it's relatively safe.
Yeah.
And or I fish lots of people right from the boat. Some people don't want to wade, that are, aren't as agile in the river and that type of thing. So there's lots of options. So the boat's a great tool. You cover lots of water. You guys know it.
Yeah.
You cover lots of water and try to get over some fish that haven't seen a fly, and that's the name of the game. That's the name of the game for sure. So.
No, it's wicked. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys because you and Adam really we had a fantastic day on the water. So thanks again for having us out because it was a blast, and we highly recommend it to anybody in Ontario and beyond.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll put some links to where people can find you in our show notes, and so people can find how to contact you to set up a trip. But thanks again, Tyler, for coming on the show, man. It was
Thanks,
a blast.
Tyler.
Tyler, now's like Yuma said, shameless plug time. Like, what's your handle on Instagram? What's your website URL? What's going on?
Find you,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the website, www.flywaterguiding.com. Right. And Instagram is flywater.guiding.
Yeah.
So similar. And those are the two best places to find me. All my contact information is on both of those. I'm going to say the Instagram account and the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look me up. And you can contact myself or Adam. I think you can click a link there to email either one of us. If for some reason you don't like the looks of me and you'd rather go with Adam.
Handsome guy.
You can do that. Handsome guy. Or feel free to get in touch with me, and we'll try to get it organized and set it up.
Absolutely.
And go from there.
And you can find Adam at flywater_steelhead on Instagram. So similar handle, but check him out. Tons of fishy pictures on there. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah.
Cool. Well, everybody at home, thanks for listening, and hopefully everybody can get out and enjoy some fishing. That's really it. Have a good rest of the fall here, and that's it for me, Mitch. Aldo.
Bye.
Yelma.
See you guys later.
And Tyler.
Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
You can find all of SoFly's content at sofly.ca. On Instagram, we're at the SoFly Crew. You can reach us at thesoflycrew@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or concerns. On Facebook, we're SoFly, and our podcast is available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.